Test, test, test. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Hello. Được rồi. Yay. Hôm nay mình tập speaking. Yes, hôm nay chúng ta sẽ speaking thêm. Please don't call me sir. Please. I'm not a sir. Ok, các bạn muốn làm sir là các bạn phải là knight, right? Phải là vua của nước Anh. Cho mình cái chức là sir thì các bạn mới được gọi là sir. Ok, I'm kidding. But don't call me sir. Tôi đã tiếng Anh như một bữa không? If you want, we can do that again. Stop calling me sir. I'll leave it right here. Don't call me sir. Ma'am, don't call me ma'am. Okay, why do we have another speaking session? Don't you like speaking? Mọi người không thích làm speaking á? Yes, anh có gì khóa Bloom nha. Okay, don't call me mom. I'm not your mom. I'm not your sister. Okay, you can call me bro. Don't call me sir, please. No, I like speaking. Okay. Don't call me Captain. I'm not Captain America, okay? No, not Big K either. Don't do that. Okay. English is everywhere, so please speak English. Okay. So I guess today we're speaking English again, which is kind of cool. All right. So today we're gonna keep going with our speaking things. Since the last time we only got we only did 3 speaking questions, and then we had to move on to part 2, which is not a lot. So today hopefully we'll be able to do a few more. All right. So are we all ready? Hi. Yes. Okay. You can call me teacher. I guess that's fine. Anh ơi, học khóa Bloom xong trung tâm sẽ theo dõi trong 2 tháng sau đó đi thi. Not really em. Cái này anh trả lại tiếng Việt xíu nha. Là em học xong khóa Bloom á, thì sau khi em học xong thì em sẽ vẫn còn một vài gọi là một vài cái bài tập em chưa làm đi chẳng hạn. Thì khi mà em làm thì giáo viên sẽ vẫn hỗ trợ em thôi. Nhưng mà trên lớp thì chúng ta kết thúc cái lớp ở trên lớp rồi. Okay. Is it advisable to use inversion in our speaking test? Like, is it a must? It is not a must. It is an inversion, but my point is just speak normally. The point of the speaking test is that the other person understands you, so you don't have to, pull out all these grammatical points to impress the examiner. Just make sure that the examiner understands you. Okay? What's up the ceiling? You want to see the ceiling here? I'll show you the ceiling. Look at that. Look at that ceiling. That's what's up. Okay. How can we get a good score in grammar? Again, the main thing is just try to get the other person to understand you. That's the main part. Can we do part 2? We can do part 2, but after we do part 1. All right? So let's talk a little bit about the weather. I want to do part 1, and then later on we'll do a part 2, and then at the end we'll do a part 3. How? Okay? I've been waiting for you all day. Sure. That's not creepy at all. Different context. Okay. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the weather. So, this is a pretty common topic. I've seen it once or twice in my 14 times taking the IELTS exam. Or actually, I should call it the IELTS test. So today we're going to be discussing a little bit about the weather, some common words to use to describe your weather, or the weather. So let's take a look at this first question. So we have, what's your favorite type of weather? So I'm pretty sure if people ask this in Vietnamese, you would probably not be able to give a very good answer, right? So let's start easy, like last time. When we start a speaking question or an answer, the first thing you should do is you should give a direct answer, right? Don't make the examiner wait for your answer. Just hit him with it, right? Just directly into the answer, oh, I love the rain, I love sunny weather, that sort of thing. So let's do a quick question and answer session. So what do you think? What's your favorite type of weather? Let me know. Just type it out. Okay, remember Z platform is Zeplao. Okay, I will remember that. Hello, Brett, welcome back. It's been so long. How was your test? Mild, summer, sunny, cool. Okay, hello you. Where can we watch the recording? Well, you can watch the recording on YouTube. So thanks for... I said the wrong thing. On YouTube. You got a 7.0. That's great. That's good. So a lot of sunny, a lot of cold weather. I am keen on chilly weather. The word keen on doesn't really make sense here. It's not wrong, it's just kind of weird because when you say you're keen on something, it's like you like something, right? Never heard anyone use I'm keen on cold weather. You like the dry weather, okay? If we use common vocabulary, grammar, but be fluent and accurate, what score would we receive? That's me. That's every single time that I take the test, I just use normal vocabulary. So every single question that I've answered in the past session, that's the vocabulary I use when I take the test. I don't use anything else. If you want to see like full answers, you can go check on IDP. I did like a sample for them for the entire test. You can see like what I usually answer. My desire is to see a rainy day. That's a bit weird because when you say your desire, right? When you use the word desire, it means like something that you really, really want. Like my desire in life is to get like full 9s on an IELTS test, right? So saying that your desire is a rainy day is kind of odd. Okay, it's kind of odd. I wouldn't say that. Sunny weather because my clothes can dry a lot more easily. Okay, that's interesting. Generally love sunny days. That's good. So usually in Vietnam, we just say you either like sunny days, right? Or you like rainy days. So it's completely up to you how you answer this question. The hard part comes after, right? Because once you've given direct answers, let's say, oh, my favorite. Let me type it here so there's no confusion. So let's say you say, my favorite type of weather is sunny weather. All right. So for example, if you give this as your direct answer, the next thing that you're going to want to think about is how you can extend your answer, how you can develop your answer. And the easiest way to do this, in my experience, is to just talk about the pros and cons of something, right? So for example, if you say you love sunny weather, think about like the benefits of it, right? If in case you have never seen these words before, so pros means or benefit, right? And cons mean like the drawbacks. Okay, so think about the benefits and think about the drawbacks of something. So here we would think about like, all right, what can sunny weather offer us? So I saw a very good answer in the chat. Somebody said that you can get like your clothes to dry faster. So you can give like one of the benefits, which is that your clothes dry faster. I've never experienced this because we don't live in an area where we actually dry our clothes using the weather. We dry our clothes just because of how dry it is. Okay, I desire you live all night. I'm pretty sure that no one else has that desire. I'm really into cold weather. That's kind of a weird thing to be into, but okay. Right, so you can go swimming, sure. So clothes dry faster. You can go swimming, go on a picnic. Maybe just go outside in general, right? You can go out in general. Take a stroll in the park. That makes sense. You could go anywhere without the hassle of bringing a raincoat with you. I guess that makes a lot of sense, right? I can hang out with my friends. Yeah, so you would think about some of the benefits of sunny weather, and then you would say something like, so I really like sunny weather because it helps my clothes dry faster, and I can do so many outdoor activities. So then you can just go on ahead and list all of them, right? Like going swimming, going for a picnic. And if you are listing a lot of things and you want to end off, you can use a phrase like "and so on," right? So this phrase just basically means that there are more things that you want to talk about, but you don't want to give them right now. So you can say "and so on." In writing, you would write something like "etc," right, etc. But in speaking, you can say "and so on." All right. It offers me a suitable condition for me to hang out. Yeah, so basically the same thing. You name it. You name it is... I don't like that phrase. That phrase is a bit too... what's the word for it? That phrase is kind of weird to me because usually when you hear the word "you name it," it's like when you're advertising something and you're giving the benefits of that thing, you would say "you name it." But when you're just giving a general answer like this, like saying "you name it" isn't wrong, but I just don't like it. Okay? It's not too complex. It's kind of awkward. Yeah. It allows me to wear outfits matching my fashion taste. Okay. So anyway, whatever you like, just give some benefits. And For a part one question, like we discussed last time, you only need to answer for like 20 seconds. So that's about less than 50 words. Okay. And for this answer, we've given 33 words. So it could be a bit longer. So one thing that you can do is you can give some more drawbacks, right? So you can say your favorite type of weather is sunny weather. And then you can say something like, oh, and I don't really like the rain because so on and so on. So for example, like you can say something by contrast, right? Because you're giving an idea that's the opposite. So you say something like, by contrast, I really dislike the rain because I have to carry a raincoat with me all the time, right? So yeah, you can give your answer and then you can go say something else that's still related to the original question of weather. You don't just have to answer sunny weather and that be all, but you can also give another sort of answer about something that you dislike. All right. So yeah, that's one pretty decent answer right here. What's the difference between always and all the way? There's actually no similarities between the two. Always just means that you do something so frequently that it's like you do it every day, basically. And all the way means you do something completely. So to give an example, you would say, close the door all the way or else you'll let the wind in, something like that, right? It means to shut the door completely. Okay. How can I watch later after you end this live? Using your eyes, probably. It's smudging my makeup. Okay, I've never used that word before because I've never used makeup before. Okay. All right, but anyway, it's on Yêu Từ Bé. You can check up there or down there, wherever it is. Favorite weather, and you include I dislike. It's redundant. Well, it's redundant, but so what? Right? A lot of things we say are redundant. It doesn't matter. You don't actually need to stop your answer at just your answer. You can keep going. You can keep talking about other things. If the examiner wants, he'll stop you. So yeah, so it's easy to catch a cold when it's yeah. I like rainy days because the sound of it is therapeutic. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, you can yap. It's a speaking test, right? So basically, you go in there, you yap, and then you get a 9. That's how you do it. All right. I generally prefer clement and mild weather because I feel comfortable and I can do my job on a happy note. That's a weird phrase. On a happy note. Usually you end things on a happy note. You don't do things on a happy note, right? So it basically comes from terms that you use in music. So when a song ends on a happy note, it means it has a good ending. You usually don't do things on a happy note, right? But anyway, if you have a different answer, like you prefer the rain, you can also go ahead and just give that answer. You can say, oh yeah, I really love the rain because I like the sounds that it makes. Okay. How about all the time versus always? It's basically the same thing. Do you think it's good to enhance the fluency instead of brainstorming for more ideas? I don't understand your question. Do you think it's good to enhance the fluency instead of brainstorming for more ideas? Listen, if you give an answer and you run out of ideas, say you can only give an answer this far, so you can only talk about the benefits of sunny weather, that's fine, you can stop there. It's not the end of the world if you have a short answer to a question. Remember, you have 9 questions, right? So in general, if you can answer 8 questions in detail and you have one answer, right? You have one answer that's a bit short. That's fine. That's completely fine. Because nobody is gonna have the ideas for every single topic. So sometimes you're gonna give a short answer, and that's completely okay. All right? Task 2, shorten ETC, i.e. ETC is fine, but I usually don't use them because it's not necessary. Okay, so that's the first question. We finished that. So let's move on to a different question. I think this one is pretty simple, so let's skip that. So let's do this one. Does the weather ever affect your mood? So your mood is like how you feel, right? So you feel happy, you feel sad, you feel anxious. So does the weather ever affect your mood? Hun says, I hate rainy days because I'm too scared of ghosts, and days are usually gloomy in a rainy season. All right. I mean, that makes sense. Definitely. Oh, thanks, Thương. Yeah, I have a soft spot for enjoying rainy weather. I think it's better if you say something like, I have a soft spot for rainy weather, or for rain. In my home, well, probably in your hometown or something like that would be better. When I do a writing test, I frequently do some, or you make some wrong grammar. You make some grammar mistakes, basically. Now can you recommend tense I learned? Just keep writing using AI or something like that to check your grammar, and then just learn from that. Okay. Các bạn hỏi là anh ơi, học xong khóa bết có cần test lại để lên Bloom không nha em? No, that's not necessary. All right, definitely. Okay, T-Bone asks a really, really hard question. Người sầu cảnh cũng đeo sầu. Người buồn cảnh không có vui bao giờ đâu. I think you can just say something simple like the weather affects my mood. That's basically it. You don't really need to, give like a poem or like an idiom or something like that. Does your sample right now can be counted as band 8 or 9? If you answer it exactly as I do, then probably, but you can't really have an 8 or 9 sample for one question. Because remember, speaking is not just your answer to one question, it's your answer to 9 part 1 questions, a part 2 question, and some more part 3 questions. So let's say you have a very good part 1 question and you answer it, you have a very good answer for a part 1 question, but everything else you do incorrectly. That means that the band 9 sample that you used for that one question doesn't really affect anything. It's more the entirety of the test, right? Rainy day is like the clouds are crying. Okay. All right. No, it's not mandatory. Sonny asked if it's mandatory to answer questions in part 2. No, it's not. It says you should say. When hanging out on a rainy day, you should probably say I get caught in the rain and it makes me feel frustrated. Okay. That makes sense? When it's shiny, I think you mean it when it's shining out. Because shiny means like something like metal, for example. When light hits metal, it's shiny, right? So probably the word you're looking for is shining. How about the examiner said, see you again at the end? Well, maybe in the parking lot? Impact my mood. Have a picnic with my friend because rain just don't go anymore. Well, I guess that kind of affects your mood if you're talking about like it makes you feel frustrated, but it's not actually asking about whether it affects any activities. Nếu như bảo là ghét mưa vì ẩm ướt, just say it's wet, right? I hate the rain because it makes me wet. And dirty. There you go. So wet and dirty. It sounds kind of 18 plus, but whatever. All right. Sometimes when I am so excited for a trip, you prepared for an hour. When you go out, the sky is dark. It's very unpleasant, and then you feel frustrated, right? Okay, I think that makes sense. So for this, I would probably just answer like, yeah, of course. So something like, yes, of course it does. Like we mentioned on the past stream, when you answer a question, you can try to avoid mentioning or repeating the words that the examiner said to you. So instead of saying like, oh yeah, the weather does affect my mood, you can say, yeah, of course it does. And then that be that. So here what I would do is I would give an example. And I like giving examples because, first of all, usually when you're answering part 1 questions, you're using present simple mostly, right? Because the questions are about what you like. So for example here, does it affect your mood? you're probably just going to be using like yes it does, present simple, right? And for example, in the first question we answered, we also used mostly present simple. So by giving an example, and especially talking about your past, it gives you the opportunity to use different tenses in part one, which is quite rare, right? So you can probably give an example about a time when it has affected your mood, right? So I think first of all, it gives you the opportunity to use past tense. And secondly, it gives you an opportunity to talk about something that you've experienced. And generally, I think that when you're talking about your own experience, it's a bit easier to answer because you're talking from memory. You're not thinking about it, or you're not like trying to use reasoning to say something, right? It rains, so it is irritated. You have to wear... Oh, so you would say it's irritating, not irritated, right? On sunny days, I usually feel more energetic, whereas rain just drains my energy. That's also a very good answer, but like I said, we can give an example here to talk a little bit more about the past, right? Example, every time it rains, I am reminded of the day my ex broke up with me several years ago. It never fails to bring a tear to my eyes. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that, but hopefully you've moved on, right? But okay, so let's say a time that it has affected my mood, and let's talk about stormy weather, right? So I'll give an example about a time when I was just chilling at home, and then it started thundering outside, right? And I got so scared because this was back when I was a little kid. So I'll give an example like that. So let's say, of course it does. And then I can give an example by using the phrase, I remember when, or I remember back when I was just a little kid. I used to be very afraid of storms, right? So storms are just like heavy rainstorms, basically, usually with lightning and thunder, right? So I used to be very afraid of storms, and on those stormy nights, right? So storm is the noun and stormy is the adjective here. I would hide under my blankets. Whoops, not blankets, blankets, right? Because of the loud thunder sounds outside. Okay, so this would be my answer. It affects my mood in the sense that it makes me feel afraid and a little bit anxious, right? So in a question about weather, first of all, you get to use past tense. And not only that, you can use phrases like storms, stormy nights, right? Because it's a bit rare to use these phrases. And you can also use a phrase like hide under my blankets. And even though you probably, all of you, right, you all know these words like hide under my blankets, you understand what that means. But the number of opportunities you have in part one to use phrases like that are very rare. So you have to create them yourself. And the best way that I think, or the best way to do so in my opinion, right, is to talk about your past. Okay, and just using these words, it's very rare that you hear someone use these words, especially in part one. So try your best to give examples is my advice. All right, let me read some more answers. So if we use basic answers in part one, will it make our scores become bad? No, it will not. Basic answers are fine. Okay, you have to remember that the examiner is not grading your answer based on what you say, as in they're not grading it based on how basic the idea is. They're grading it on your fluency, they're grading it on your pronunciation, they're grading it on your vocabulary and your grammar. So as long as you can make sure that you're speaking properly, you have the proper pronunciation, you're using the correct words, and your grammar is okay, and you can maintain your fluency, that's a good answer. It doesn't matter how basic your answer is. All right, so let me continue reading. So allergy seasons really give me a hard time. Oh, that pollen is uncountable everywhere, which you can't escape from. Okay, I think that's also a decent answer. Yes, my mood is easy to be influenced by the weather because in last summer, you don't need the preposition in there. You can say, because last summer I felt more energetic for those extracurricular activities with my friends. All right, I think that makes sense. Gosh, the same as me back in stormy nights. All right. Is it okay to speak fast in part 1 to use more ideas? What does that mean? Speak fast in part 1 to use more ideas. I don't understand. Trucks and cars used to ruin my outfits for my important meeting when they cross me, but that's not the weather, is it? It's not really talking about the weather, right? But maybe you're talking about like during the rain, right? If you're walking down the sidewalk and a truck drives past you, it splashes it onto your clothing. I think that's what you mean, right? So when they crossed me, that's the word that's confusing here. I think you mean when they passed you, right? When they pass you on the street. Because cross means they're moving in front of you. What does hide under my blankets mean? It means you hide. It means you take a blanket, right? And then you put it on your head so that you don't see anything outside. Trust me, it works. Em là part 1 mình nói nhanh để nói được nhiều á mà. Well, I don't think that's a good way to do it, because if you talk really quickly, you're gonna run out of ideas. And then you're gonna be stuck there just looking at the examiner, and the examiner's gonna look back at you, and both of you will lock eyes, and then you'll fall in love, and that's no good for nobody. If I fell into a mug, I would feel angry. What do you mean a mug? Isn't a mug like a cup? Or do you mean like the mud? Like dirt? Is that what you mean? Aside from talking about the past, any other tips? Well, oh yeah, so the mud, not the mug. A mud puddle, yeah. You're looking for the word mud, not mug. Mug is like something you drink with. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, talk about your past. This is a very, very, very common way that I use, or something that I use a lot during like pretty much part 1, part 2, and part 3. I just start giving examples. But anyway, so yeah, this is how I would answer it. How do you say we hate? Oh yeah, so when you want to say that, you can use the word flooded, right? To describe the streets. So the streets are flooded, for example. And of course, traffic jams. You can say something like the streets are flooded, and the traffic, and there are many traffic jams, for example. And then if you want to keep going, you can say something like, and there are many traffic jams, especially after the rain stops. All right. I did the same thing, but me being brain dead, I kept saying I remember the whole test. So it's like that one song. It's like, I remember when, I remember when, I remember. Right. Do you have any plans to move your center to center districts? No, sir. How can we... Okay. LMAO. All right. Làm sao nhận ra lỗi grammar với word form? It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter what kind of mistake it is. It's just acknowledge it as a mistake and move on. Okay, so I think we can move on from this question as well. Let's do one more about the weather. Okay, this question, right? How is the weather in your hometown? So they're asking about the weather in general. So I would also like to know this, like, first of all, where are you from, right? And secondly, how's the weather in your hometown? Oh, you want me to use my Vietnamese accent? Okay, do you want to hear my Vietnamese accent? I have a very good Vietnamese accent. Been practicing it all my life. Yes. Okay, but promise not to be offended, all right? I want to hear a lot. All right. Okay, let's think of an answer, and then I'll do it in a Vietnamese accent. Indian accent would be better. Are you sure about that? Okay, but tell me. Let me know in the chat. Where are you from and how is the weather? Stop laughing and pay attention. Okay. All right. So from Bình Phước, which has the same kind of weather patterns. Oh, that's a really good phrase. Weather patterns. So weather patterns mean, basically it means like when it starts to rain and when it starts to stop, or when it stops, basically. So for example, a weather pattern in Ho Chi Minh City is something like during the summer months, right? Like from probably around May to around September, it's the rainy season. So that's called a pattern, right? So it's always from May to September. And then in October, November, it still rains, but only for a little bit. And then in December and January and February, usually there's no rain. So that's called a weather pattern, right? Your Majesty, the kingdom awaits your command. Okay. 4 seasons. Okay, interesting. I've never experienced the snow, so... Thanks to the weather forecast, the weather is quite predictable and I can make my plans. Okay, but you should still say like what the weather is like, right? So for Ho Chi Minh City, weather is so good. I only have 2 seasons here, rainy and sunny. I've heard this answer 200 different times. Just try some Vietnamese accent, please. I come from the north central Vietnam, which is well known as the destination of many storms. Ah, the destination of storms. That's an interesting phrase. From Nha Trang, where its weather mostly depends on the beach. What do you mean the weather depends on the beach? I don't get that. Just dry weather. Humid weather. All right, that's interesting. Okay. Humid weather also. The weather is nice and balmy because my hometown is in a mountainous area. So it's cool almost all year round. Okay, that's interesting. So the problem when I answer this is that I don't really care about the weather because I don't go outside, right? So I don't leave my house ever. And when I do, it's only for like 2 minutes. So I really don't care about the weather. All right. Need more coffee asks, what is balmy? Well... Mr. or Miss Avocado, but can you please explain what balmy is to our friend, since you used that word? Salty air and thunderstorm every time. Okay, that's interesting. So in this question, I would probably say something like, because for me, I actually don't care about the weather. So I'll say something like, actually, I don't really care about the weather, because I don't often go outside, so I can't really describe it in detail, right? So for example, I wouldn't know like which months have the most rain, right? I wouldn't know that. So after I give this answer, I would probably say something like, basically, there are 2 main seasons. The dry season during the summer months. Or no, it's the opposite, right? It's the rainy season during the summer months and dry during the remaining year, right? Or actually during the remaining year doesn't really make sense, right? So during the summer months and dry otherwise. Let's just use this word to keep it short. Mát ẻ? What is mát ẻ? Is a better way to put it. Okay. If I create some fake stories, is it okay in IELTS says? Of course. All my stories are fake. I've never told a real story in speaking before. Okay. Pleasantly warm. Cambridge Dictionary is free. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, Vietnamese accent, right? So please don't get offended. I'm only doing this for fun. All right? Don't get offended. Actually, I don't really care about the weather because I don't go outside, so I can't really describe it in detail. Basically, there are 2 main seasons, okay? The rainy season during the summer month and the dry otherwise. There you go. There's your Vietnamese accent. Have fun. Is it speaking perfect? No, it's just part 1. Okay, but no, only this time we'll never do it again. Okay, please give Mr. Khoa back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so let's wrap up this part 1 session right here. So let's move on to part 2. Last time we did something about history, right? So what topic would you like to do this time? That's the way I speak English. I am trying to improve. There's nothing wrong with speaking like that. Just make sure that you're pronouncing everything correctly. The weather in my hometown is very harsh. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, interesting in the sense that it's harsh. So you probably should give an example of that. Like, what makes it harsh? And what effects does it have on you? Okay. Oh, congratulations, Gung. 6 is decent. How can I improve my pronunciation? So to improve your pronunciation, this is I have 2 big tips here. Okay, the first thing is you need to understand that English and Vietnamese are 2 different languages. So don't use the sounds that you would use in Vietnamese in English, especially or not especially, but basically every single sound. So for example, in the word time, right? The word time is a very common word, and usually people with a Vietnamese accent pronounce this word a bit differently than you would in English. A lot of Vietnamese people say something like tam, right? Because in our language we have the sound ah, so we say tam, right? Or tem. But actually this word is pronounced time, right? Even if you say something like time, it's okay, we can understand that. But you need to remember that the sound I here is a diphthong, so you have to move it from the a sound to the e sound. So it's like I, time, not just tam, right? Time, not tam. It's not incorrect. It's just something that you can do to improve your pronunciation a little bit. Or in some other cases. So for example, let me think of a word. Let's say you want to use the word, what word should we use? Right, let's say she, right? So she is another word that a lot of my students mispronounce. In English, you'd say like she, so that's a very harsh sh sound, like a sh sound, right? But in Vietnamese, a lot of people would say something like si. That's not correct, right? It's not a s sound. It's not a s sound either, but it's a sh sound, right? I graduated in English linguistics, but I have not used it frequently in the past 2 years, and I've lost my fluency. Well, just keep practicing. What else can we say? All right. Last history topic you taught from Hohar. I practiced so now and I don't remember. Well, I'm sorry. What should we do if we run out of ideas in speaking part 2? It's quite awkward. There's a way. There's always a way. Okay, right, so that's the first thing. So English is not Vietnamese, so pay attention to the sounds. Don't just use like Vietnamese sounds in English words. That's how you get the Vietnamese accent, right? I totally forgot what the second thing was. I said there were 2 big tips. Oh yeah, the second tip that I have is speak louder. Okay? It sounds easy, but a lot of people forget to do this. And so when you're talking, if you speak too quietly and you don't move your mouth around enough, you're not going to be able to produce the most accurate sounds. And so sometimes the sounds get mixed together. Sometimes you miss a sound. So speak louder and move your jaw more often. All right? Because in English, you really need to use all the parts of your mouth to produce sound. So speak louder, move your mouth more frequently, right? It's my 2 tips. Of course, the best thing to do to improve your pronunciation is just to practice. But these are just 2 things that I would keep in mind if you're practicing. All right. Do you use shadowing technique to improve your speaking skill? I used to way back in the day. How do you help your students develop ideas? Okay, so let's put pronunciation aside. Let's talk about part 2 because we should talk about that. So let's move back. So I see a lot of things like science, architecture, crime, space, rules and regulations, Architecture, new laws. Okay, crime. Historical item. Okay, let's not do history again. I don't want to talk about history, man. Way back in the day means in the past, yes, but no S. Okay. Historical buildings. Okay. So a lot of different suggestions. So okay, let's just pick between two. I saw a lot of people asking for a rule/law, something like this, right? So this is number one. And the second thing that I saw is something about buildings. Okay, so let me know, one or two. Number one or number two? Do you think it's possible to get a band 6.5 from 5 in 1 month in speaking skill? No, I don't think it's possible, man. I'm sorry. Okay, so 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. What is 3? 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Both. If we have time, we can do both, but okay, let's do number one first, then a rule or a law. So where is this topic? What topic is rule or a law? Let me look it up. Okay, let me find a topic. Rule. I do not see any rules. I remember seeing a question like describe a rule that you don't like, right? I think that's a topic. Oh yeah, it is a topic. But I need to find the cue card. So give me 2 seconds. Okay, so I found this topic on the internet, right? Describe a rule that you don't like. You should say what it is, why you don't like it, how do others feel about the rule, and explain whether you followed the rule. Okay, so is this topic difficult enough? Or do you... I think it is difficult enough. All right, a difficult one. Is this good? I think that's good, right? Will you do part 3 too? If we finish this, then yes, we'll do part 3. Okay, so think about this. Think about a rule that you don't like. Okay, I'll give you some tips later, but I want you to think too. So think about some rules that you don't like. Wearing uniforms, okay. I'm gonna start my mental breakdown. What do you mean? And then we talk about recent traffic rule. Yeah, I don't have an idea on this field. I think it should be a rule that you don't like from your country. It's just that you don't like. That's the topic I found. Dress code, okay. Traffic rule. Wearing helmets, okay. Five mil five for driving on the pavement. Okay, all right. When will the stream end? Probably in around 15 minutes. Using blue sky. I have no idea what that means. Could be rules from schools or workplace. Yes, it can be a rule anywhere you like. Okay, wearing student ID card. Okay, so I think that you all have very good answers, right? But it's a direct answer only. So, for example, if you're talking about a rule like, oh, getting fined for driving on the pavement, okay, or wearing helmets, right? If you answer a part 2 question and you say something like, oh, there's a rule that I really don't like, it's having to wear helmets when you ride a bike or when you ride a motorbike, to be specific. And then the next thing you'll say is, and I don't like it because sometimes when I do my hair up, right? Or sometimes when I change my hairstyle, I dress it up nicely and I go outside, then I put on a helmet, it ruins it, right? That's not enough for a 2-minute answer. And the suggestions here, right? Something about how others feel about the rule. It's still not enough because you can say something like, oh, I think a lot of other people don't like it, but that's about it, right? I hate the rule that bans truck drivers from what? truck driver than 4 hours because it's not suitable for infrastructure. Ruin my scalp help. Okay. Drinking is not allowed. Parents rule. Okay. So anyway, back to the topic. The hardest part about answering a part 2 question like this is that you rush right into the answer, right? You go straight to the part where you talk about the rule is that you have to wear a helmet. Okay. And while that's not wrong, obviously it's not going to give you the best chances of developing your answers because you've basically answered everything, right? So when do you go live on this platform? Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Okay. So my advice is to slow down a little bit. Don't just go straight into describing and answering the recommended questions. Okay. So don't just answer the suggested questions. Okay. Again, you can do that, but don't just only do that, right? So how would I tackle such a question? Okay, I'm glad you asked. Remember about 20 minutes ago when we talked about how I usually answer? It's the exact same thing. I'll give an example. Okay? I will give an example here. And the thing that I'm going to be giving an example about is a time when this rule has affected me. Okay? So I'm not just talking about a rule that I don't like. I'm going to be talking specifically about a time that this rule has had an impact on me. Okay? So I'm going to be talking about a story, not just describing the rule. Okay? Right, so that's how you would, that's how I would tackle this problem. Okay, so when you're telling a story like this, right, you're basically just telling a story. When you're telling a story, there are a few things that you should include in your answer. Number one, you should have like a time, and you should be able to explain what you were doing at that time. All right, so that's the first thing that I would talk about. And the second thing that I would talk about is I'll just give some extra information about the story. So things like who was there, why I was there, and similar things. Okay, and only then will I go into the main idea, which is describing the rule. Okay, and then afterwards I'll talk about like the results of the story. Okay? Right. So this is how I usually tackle difficult topics. I don't just describe the rule, but I talk about how it affected me. I'll talk about a story that revolves around the rule. Okay? Right. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everyone? Hopefully it does. I wish you would teach speaking every day. I can't. My throat would die, and then I would die, and then everyone would be sad. I'm reviewing what I learned in class from this, hopefully. If I spend too much time on the story, is it okay? It's completely fine. As long as you're tackling the main topic, which is a rule that you don't like, you can talk about whatever you want. It doesn't matter if it's off topic or not. If you give a direct answer, okay, this is the rule that I don't like, you can tell a story about that rule and it's not off topic. Off topic would be something like they're asking about a rule that you don't like, but you're talking about a ruler that you don't like, for example. That would be off topic, right? Did you practice speaking yourself or doing it with a partner? I talk to myself. That's the best partner I've ever had. Okay. Right, a ruler is like a king or a leader, basically. Someone who rules over everyone else. Okay. All right, so let's go into detail. Okay, so we're gonna be telling a story. So now we have to think about what story we would like to talk about. So I think that in speaking part 2, sometimes people tend to get carried away and they'll try to answer it as honestly as possible. And what I mean is people will talk about a rule that they actually really hate. Okay, but the problem is when you're talking about something you hate, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will have a lot of ideas to talk about. So my advice is don't just pick a rule based on what you don't like, but you should pick something that's easy to talk about, right? You should pick something that's easy to talk about, and then you can make it a bit closer to the topic, which is that you don't like it. So, for example, if you're talking about something like finding people for driving on the pavement, that's fine, but there's not a lot to talk about there, okay? But if you're talking about something simpler, like having to wear a uniform at work or at school, or having to wear an ID card, a bit simpler, but it's much easier to talk about, right? Okay, can I still get like an 8 using a story technique? My teacher doesn't like it a bit when I use it. Okay, so I've gotten like 5 9s on my speaking, and every single time I go in there, I just tell a story, okay? If you don't have anyone to talk with, can I use ChatGPT? I guess you can. Is there a safe zone for speaking part 2, like over 1 minute 30? Yeah, so sometimes you can talk over 2 minutes, you can talk over 1 minute 30. Sometimes you can just talk a little bit over a minute. You can still get a 9. That's how I did it. So it doesn't really matter as long as it's over 1 minute. Okay? All right, so what should we talk about? Well, I think let's talk about something easy, something that everyone can understand. Having to wear a uniform. Okay. Tighten traffic laws and increase penalties. It's annoying because my monthly salary might not be enough to cover the fines. Well, don't get arrested, I guess. Right. So you don't have any aversions against it, but you just don't like it. Just imagine, exactly. You just imagine that you don't like it. Okay? Pick something that's easy to talk about. Don't just pick something that you actually dislike. Okay? The number one priority should be that it's easy to talk about. All right. I don't like wearing uniform as a sophomore. Sure. Okay, so now that we have a rule that we don't like, the next thing that we need to do is we need to think about how it impacted us, right? Why don't we like wearing uniforms, and what impact has it made? And we need to think about a time that it's really affected us. The thing with the fine is that they don't take the average salaries into account. Just don't get caught. Just don't get caught. That's a skill issue. If you drive too fast, you get caught. But if you drive really, really fast, you won't get caught. I shouldn't say that. That's a joke. Okay, I'm talking about in Minecraft, in GTA, okay? It's a joke. Okay. In GTA. All right. So let's think about this. A time when having to wear a uniform has impacted us. Okay, so if I'm talking about this topic, right, when I was a child, okay, in kindergarten, basically. So I would probably talk about a time when I ran out of uniforms, like ran out of outfits, and so I didn't have anything to wear because it was raining a lot, so I didn't have time to, do the laundry and iron it out and dry it. So I wore the wrong uniform, and then I got the Vietnamese version of detention, which is ghi tên vô sổ đầu bài. You know? So yeah, let's talk about that. So during the rainy season, right? Clothes got wet, not enough time to dry, right? Wore the wrong uniform. So I think a lot of people have experienced this, right? Like when you're going to school in the morning, but you're wearing like the what's it called? The exercise uniform or physical education uniform, right? And then your teachers yell at you, right? It's okay to talk Vietnamese like you said earlier. What do you mean talk Vietnamese like you said? I should have a podcast? No, I should not have a podcast. I'll start saying very silly things. Okay, so in this topic, we're going to be talking about a time when it was raining a lot, so your clothes got wet. Basically, your uniform got wet. So not enough time to dry them, so you wore the wrong uniform, and you got ghi tên vô sổ đầu bài because of that. Okay? Oh no, you cannot say ghi vô sổ đầu bài. That's not... you say something like, oh, you get detention, or they call your parents or something like that. You get punished. The easiest way to say that is you get punished. Okay? Oh, that's the timer. Okay, what is ghi tên như số đầu bài? Because there's no số đầu bài in English, right? So you have to make up a name for it. So it's, what would you call that? Like a punishment book? A book of punishment. Sounds kind of weird. Okay. Right, so yeah, let's just talk about it. So a time you would say something like during high school, and then you would say something like during the rainy season, right? And let's say after school, take extra classes, right? Rain during transportation, and so had no uniforms left, right? Okay. Right. And that's going to be the first part. We're talking about like the time and explaining what we were doing at that time. And then extra information, I guess we can talk a little bit about like your school's uniform, dress code, or whatever. Okay. The phone rings to prove that you are not an AI. Yep. Exactly. Written up. Yeah, basically. Blacklist paper. A blacklist? Okay. Right. Yeah, and then we go into the main idea, describe the rule that you broke. Okay. Right. And so that's the main idea, and then we're going to be talking about the results. So, yeah, let's just say something simple. I got yelled at by the teacher, and that was it, right? It's not something that's very impactful, right? It's just you get yelled at, but you were, let's say, annoyed because no other options. I mistook my friend for another student because of the uniform. What do you mean? Was it a dude that wore áo dài? Is that why? You got blacklisted by your teacher. I'm sure this is wrong, but this is the closest one I can think of. Sure. My mom grounded me whenever I logged onto my Instagram, the camera app, without her permission. Okay. All right. The teacher cussed me out. Are you sure? That doesn't sound right. I don't think the teacher is allowed to cuss you out. Who was your teacher? You should write a report about that. Okay, so yeah, that's the story that we're going to be telling. Oh no. I'm sorry, yeah, to my TikTok overlords. All right, so I'm gonna give myself 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna answer. Is that okay? Okay, cause that means you get swore at, like they say F you and stuff. Okay, so 2 minutes. As a teacher, have you ever cussed someone out? Of course, but not when I'm teaching. Only when I play video games, okay? Alright, so now I'll have 2 minutes to talk about a rule that I don't like. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about a rule in my school that I don't really like. And this rule is actually my school's dress code, which requires students wear the correct uniform for the correct period. So, for example, if it's a regular period, then you would wear your regular uniform, but during physical education periods, then you have to wear the exercise uniform. So now I'm going to be talking about a time when I got punished because I didn't obey this rule. So it happened many years ago, of course, when I was in like grade 11 or something like that. And I remember it was during the rainy season at the time, and I also took many extra classes after school. So during 1 week, I took a lot of different extra classes, and unfortunately, I got caught in the rain one time. And on that day, my uniform got wet, and also all of my other uniforms were in the laundry, right? And obviously, due to the rainy weather, we couldn't dry everything on time. So the only thing that was left for me to wear was my exercise uniform. And so on the next day of school, I decided to wear that because, like I said, I didn't have anything else to wear. And when I got to school, initially, no one paid attention because I think that this is something that a lot of students don't really care about. And they can understand why you would wear like exercise uniform during a regular period. However, when the first period started and my teacher walked into the class and she saw me, she was very unhappy that I was wearing the wrong uniform. And I tried to explain to her that all of my other uniforms were being washed and we didn't have time to dry all of them. But she didn't accept the reason that I gave her. And so she wrote me into this book that basically... Đọc hết dài hả? Anh định giải thích cái số đầu bài là gì? Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. Spilling tea and it sounds so good. Well, so yeah, your ending sounds so amazing. Corrected. I would try to. Okay, thank you. So I don't know if anyone caught that, but I actually made like one small slip. Okay, so just a small one. So when I was talking about my teacher and I said that she didn't accept so I forgot the word to use here. I wanted to use the word like excuse. Right? But I didn't remember that word at the time. And this is a skill that you need to learn, right? Is when you don't know which word to use or you can't remember it, you try your best to find a different way to express your idea. So what I did was I said she didn't accept I didn't remember the word excuse, so I said something like she didn't accept and then I just changed it immediately, the reason that I gave. Right, so it's not an apology and it's an excuse, right? So this is a skill that you need to learn. If you don't know how to express a word, you can express it using its meaning. So an excuse is a reason that you give for why you did something, basically, right? Your explanation, sure. So, when you're thinking about ideas, you're not going to remember words, right? So you need to be able to use other words. There you go. Okay. And so this is a secret. Don't tell anyone. Okay, there's only 142 people in the chat. Don't tell anyone, but that entire story was made up. This has never happened to me. Never happened before. So don't believe everything I said, okay? Let's hope I can keep calm and not screw it up. Well, yeah, it's easier for you actually because only one person is going to be listening to you. I have like 140 people listening to me yap. So one small mistake and it's over. All right. But anyway, yeah, it's a completely made up story. So it's fine in part 2 to give made up answers. It's fine, right? As long as you can be convincing with it. But obviously, in a normal, like a test setting, right, you should probably give a real answer because it's easier to talk about real things rather than made up things. Okay? Can I ask you part 2 questions, just direction, not the whole answer? Sure, why not? We don't have to do part 3. Well, I don't think we have time to do part 3 today. So probably next time we do speaking, which is, I don't know, maybe in a week or something like that, we'll do part 3. Why not? How do you make up and generate the idea so quickly? It wasn't quick. I had like 5 minutes to think about the story. Right? See, I already made it up here. How can I make up stories in just 1 minute before answering? That's exactly right. I'm not telling you to make up stories. I'm telling you to give a story or to tell a story that you've actually experienced. I'm making up the story so that you know what a story should look like, right? I'm not telling you to make up stories. Okay? Alrighty. What if I have no life? If you have no life, I think that you should probably prioritize other things rather than the IELTS, Describe a time you heard a stranger talking on a phone in a public place. Oh, that's super easy. Super, super easy. Just talk about like during university, you overhear one of your or one of the students in your class talking. Technically, they're a stranger to you because you don't know them, right? Please writing test 1 on Friday. Sure. Actually, I think we're doing reading on Friday. I missed your first question. Describe a river in your country. Oh, describe a river in your country is like the easiest question you could probably get. Have you ever seen this topic? Everyone else, have you ever seen this topic? Describe a river in your country. Okay, I used to think that this is a very hard topic. I used to think that, but it's not. It's a really easy one. Okay, if you're taking the test on Friday, then just relax. There's not much you can do. I got this one 7 years ago and I died on the spot. Saigon River. The Saigon River. Okay. I think technically the original question was like describe a river or lake, and it was like an important river or lake in your country, something like this. I don't know which one is a river exactly. How to make it easy? I don't think so. Okay. It's really easy. Really, it's super easy. Okay? So, for example, if I want to talk about a lake, you know what I will do? I'll talk about a trip to Dalag. And then I'll say during the trip, I visited Songhung Lake. I would do this. Okay? So basically remember what I said earlier. You don't need to spend the entirety of your 2 minutes just talking about the river or lake. You can talk about the fact that you went to Dalag and then you were having a vacation there. And on one of the days when you were in Dalag, you visited the Songhung Lake. And then you can talk about... Where is it? And then you can talk about what you did there. You don't necessarily have to describe, oh, the lake has a surface area of 232 meters squared. It's 13 meters deep, and once upon a time, a prince called Prince Face went to this lake with a sword to kill an evil lake serpent that lived there. And the people here say that the sword still lies at the bottom of the lake. And so every autumn they have a festival called the Dragon Festival, where a person will dive down and try to look for the sword. Yeah, cool. Okay. I'm stuck at the important part. Well, you can say it's important for tourism. Okay, it's important for tourism, obviously. Many people fast out there. What about your first question you ever got for part 2? Oh, when I was just a young boy, the first time I took the IELTS test, I got this question. It was a really easy question, okay? Describe something useful that you learned in math class. Very easy topic. Okay. Yeah, there it is. That's the topic that I saw, right, or that I got during my first time. Something useful that you learned in math class. Talk about Dalag and Tuda. I don't know what that is. But do examiners think that I digress if I talk about a trip instead of a river? You're talking about a river during a talk about a trip. So you're talking about the trip, but that trip is to a river. So it's okay. Using a calculus, you mean using a calculator. Calculus, it's the subject. I hate maths. What did you say about that topic? I said I learned how to use logic. Right? Basically, I talked about problem-solving skills. Problem-solving skills. Okay, your first topic knocked me out because I was so bad at math. Okay, at the time, I was also very bad at math. Autocorrect. Okay. Fair enough. But yeah, I have not seen this topic reported anytime recently, so I wouldn't worry about that. But if you do run into a topic that's like difficult like this, again, focus on talking about a story, right? Don't just focus on talking about the thing that you found useful. So, for example, you can tell a story about a time when you used something from math or from math class to do something else. Okay? I think that there are many instances where you can use math in real life. The easiest thing to do would be to say estimating how much something would cost. So for example, you can talk about a shopping trip, right? where you go to a mall and you buy a bunch of different things, and then you use mental math. Right, mental math is basically you do addition, subtraction in your head. So you can say you use mental math to quickly calculate how much everything would cost, and if you had enough money for it. Okay, so again, it's still, you're talking about a story, but you're trying to add in the detail where it's a useful skill that you learned in math. Yeah. Or to share the bill. I think that makes sense too. I'll die if I receive something related to history, geography, or math. Again, don't worry about it. Just tell a story, bro. Okay. So yeah, I think we can end the stream here. Hopefully you learned something new. And on Friday, I think we'll go back to writing, and then you hear my Vietnamese again. All right, I've not spoken another language. I've only spoken English for the past 2 days. So I think going back to Vietnamese is good. Did you download Discord to improve speaking? I downloaded Discord, but not to do that. Wish me luck, good luck, Nate. How long did it take you to get such flawless English? 25 years. And I've only lived for 26. Okay, don't call me sir, please. Have some mercy. All right, let's end the stream. Goodbye.